Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, I will continue the previous video about animation and graph editor. Also, I will discuss just other types of curves used in animation. By default, Blender displays busy type curves. As shown here, we have, for example, this type, we have a busy type as shown here in the graph editor, which means that busy type interpolation is used between keyframes as shown here. We have keyframe, and for example in this curve for the x-axis motion. So when we consider busy type interpolation, it's the curve shape. The curves at either end of the graph line represent the acceleration of the object as shown here. We can consider this just this section, this portion of the graph. Other types of interpolation are accessed in the graph editor or the dopesheet editor. In the dopesheet editor header, as shown here, we have some important keys. We can set them as shown here. In the dopesheet editor, let's click key and select interpolation mode as shown here. This is going to be showing some different grid features, and go over interpolation mode, or with the mouse cursor in the either editor press the T key. Also you can use the T key. This is going to be showing this panel or this menu set keyframe interpolation as shown here. So also what we need to know this time at this point, only be concerned with the constant, linear and busy options. As shown here, this is going to be showing, for example, so let's Ctrl Z to undo in order to show something very interesting to understand step by step. We don't delve deeper into very complicated sections. So let's move on. Hit the T key as I mentioned earlier. Also, we should click on just select constant or linear constant. For example, I'm gonna be selecting constant. It's gonna be showing adding these green lines. So let's try to select some kinds of curves and use them in our animation. With the curve selected in the graph editor, as shown in our example, let's select constant and linear. We should hit the T key as shown here, and going to select, for example, constant. As shown in our example, each type of interpolation as shown here. For example, you can select this control handle over there, then drag using the S key to scale it, for example, and we can create just linear interpolation. So also for this part like this, then for this handle select and scale. Also we can change this graph to a linear, to use a linear interpolation. So Ctrl Z to undo. And this kind of curve is busy type. Each type of interpolation produces a different motion in the animation. Constant interpolation, as I mentioned previously, results in a dramatic quick change from one state to the other at a given frame. In our example, with linear interpolation produces a change following a straight line graph between points. And it's a straight line graph between points, and the acceleration of animation at different frames at the tip of different frames is much more fast, and also to make the motion very smooth along a path. The choice of these types of graphs and motions depends on how you want your actor to behave in the animation. Both of the alternatives to busy give the option to grab and move points and to add additional points on the graph, but busy is by far the most flexible of the three, as shown in our example. Blender interpolates to add frames between the keyframes according to which of the previous curve options were selected. Blender can also figure out what to do with the frames of the animation before the first keyframe and after the last keyframe, which is called extrapolation. So let's define it. With the mouse cursor in the graph editor, press Shift key. For example, Shift key, so let's try it. The Shift E, not Shift key. Set keyframe is gonna be showing this panel, and you have many different operations to do. Constant extrapolation, linear extrapolation, make cyclic F modifier, clear cyclic F modifier. What is constant extrapolation? Blender has inserted frames that comply with a busy curve. On either side of the keyframes you can see horizontal lines that indicates there is no further change in status. This is constant extrapolation. Click on it. So for example, let's select it, Shift E key, then click on constant extrapolation. For the next extrapolation, which is linear extrapolation, Blender plots a straight line curve, leaving and entering the curve. So Shift E, and you can see also. So just for the busy curve, you can apply the constant extrapolation and the linear extrapolation. For example, for this kind of busy curve, Shift E, then go over here, linear constant extrapolation. Also Shift E, let's apply linear extrapolation. Cyclic extrapolation, Blender copies the graph between the first and last keyframes and duplicates it to infinity on either side of the graph. You make the extrapolation cyclic, you clear cyclic extrapolation. Also for T, so go back to bring it by Shift E shortcut, linear extrapolation. Make cyclic as shown here. It's gonna be making as shown here. Cyclic making different copies, graph between the first and the last keyframe and duplicates to infinity as shown here. Just make like a mathematical function, sinusoidal function, and cosine and sine function. So let me show you about what you have here. This kind of extrapolation is called cyclic extrapolation. And another example for constant extrapolation, for example, in our curve over here, this is called constant extrapolation. And also we have linear extrapolation, for example. Over here, part over here, linear extrapolation. In order to show the curve properties panel, you should go over this window of the graph editor. Then click on N key. This is gonna be showing this side panel shown here. We have different sections: F-curve, modifiers, and view. This panel provides data and gives control to certain functions in the graph panel. With the mouse cursor in the graph editor, press the N key to display the curve properties panel at the right hand side of the editor. It's over this section. The panel is divided into 3 tabs: F-curve, modifiers, and view, as shown in our example. This introduction to the curve properties panel is presented to make you aware of its existence. Experiment with the values, especially the modifiers, as shown in the modifiers tab over there. Select the noise modifier, click on add modifier, go over noise, click on it, and you get this kind of curve which adds a jittered effect to the curve as shown here. So let's just zoom in to show you something. very interesting for this kind of curve. Playing the animation sees the cube shake as it moves in the 3D viewport. In our example, so let's go back to select it. So let's play our animation. This gonna be showing that our Suzanne monkey is shaking when playing animation. Click on the spacebar and this curve showing that the Suzanne monkey is shaking when playing the animation. You notice that you have many features like scaling, strength, offset, phase, depth, also restrict frame range, start and blend it and out. All these features is used in order to set your position and the shaking for your object, and the motion depending on this kind of modifiers. It's a noise modifier. So for a more dramatic shake, increase the amplitude of the noise as shown here. So just scale. You can also play around with these different values for these different factors. For example, offset, you can change the offset. Also the scale, can make it much more smoother as shown here, and you make it much more jittered. The strength, if you want strength, then you can play the animation and we can see that you have much more disturbance and shaking when playing animation in this case. Thanks for watching. See you next tutorial, which is about animating a rotation. Thanks for watching.